What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. And I posted on Facebook not too long ago about some topics that my viewers would like to see me discuss. I'm like, leave a comment. I like to cover some things because I love audience feedback. And one of the things that a lot of people were asking me to do a video on is the Ouya. And it's this little cube right here. I think a lot of people have gotten curious about it because, especially on social media, because I'm selling about 80% of my collection. And selling all that, I've been talking about other ways of enjoying retro gaming through other means. And one of them is, of course, the Ouya. I've been talking a lot about that and the Raspberry Pi. And I'm going to be mentioning a little bit of Raspberry Pi as well. But the Ouya, without giving too much of a history lesson on what this little bundle of joy is, this little Rubik's Cube of emulation, because that's exactly what it is. It was released a couple years ago. It was a highly successful Kickstarter. It was own spiel of controversy, but pretty much this company made this console based off the Android operating system, and it was deemed a commercial flop in the end. And actually, Ouya is now owned by Razer, and they've completely abandoned this little console. But what made this console really popular is with the underground emulation community, because this essentially is just an emulation box. And what's awesome about it is compared to the Raspberry Pi, because I have a Raspberry Pi, I actually have a Raspberry Pi Zero. The Raspberry Pi Zero gives me some limitations that the Ouya I can do. I'm like, oh yeah, I can play this, no pun intended. But on the Raspberry Pi, to me, I think it's almost a hobby within itself. When you get one, you have to install the operating system. You have to, install all these different nook and crannies. And some people are not that tech savvy, and they just completely don't know a binary code from a burrito. So what's nice about the Ouya is the emulators that you actually get on the Ouya. You can actually download them from the Google Play Store, and for the most part, they're all free. And once you do that, when you download the ROMs, which Google is your friend, or you can look up other videos on YouTube that teach you how to download these ROMs, you download them, and if you look on the back of the Ouya, it has the HDMI port, has a USB, micro USB, and AC adapter, and also a Ethernet cable. So essentially, the way I put the ROMs onto my Ouya is I download all the ROMs I want on a USB stick, and I put it in the back. And all I have to do then is just go to the emulators, set the path, which is very easy if you're used to the Android operating system. Set that path to the USB memory, and boom, there's your ROMs. You can go ahead and start playing games right there. And there is a really niche community for the Ouya. I've joined a couple of groups, and people have hacked this thing and turned it into all sorts of things, just like the Raspberry Pi. And like I said, that becomes a whole new hobby within itself. But is this thing worth it? One of the things that I will say is a con to the Ouya is surprisingly the controller. The controller is not that uncomfortable. I mean, it feels okay. My only problem is the D-pad is very sharp around the edges, much like kind of like the Dreamcast controller. And while I love the Dreamcast, the controller, that D-pad, especially when you're playing like Street Fighter or something like that, it can be kind of cumbersome. Another defect, of course, is the batteries. It runs off 2 AA batteries, and you actually have to take the faceplate. See, it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's kind of a pain in the butt. You have to take the faceplate off the actual controller to get the battery out, and I'm just not a big fan of that. So there are alternatives to using a different controller on the Ouya altogether. One of it's, of course, Bluetooth controllers. One of my personal favorites, the PlayStation 3 controller. And you can hook the PS3 controller to the Ouya in just a couple of steps. And to kind of put it in simple terms, you just turn on the Ouya. You're going to have the PS3 hooked up the USB to the back of the Ouya, and once you turn it on, you hit the home button. When the lights start blinking, you unplug the cable, and it will give you a warning sign like, oh, Bluetooth disconnected. Don't worry about it. You just turn off the Ouya. When you turn it back on, you hit home button again on the PlayStation 3, and boom, you have a PlayStation 3 controller on the Ouya. Now you can use this as a second controller in case you want to play with a friend, or you could do like me and use it as your main, which feels very authentic when you're playing PlayStation 1, because PlayStation 1 actually emulates really well on the Ouya, and it actually emulates some things that I was really surprised. For the most part, it does a pretty decent job with the Sega Dreamcast. I was very surprised by it. There are a couple of hiccups, and some games are not playable whatsoever. When I was playing Power Stone, it looked really good other than some of the glitches, but overall it was very playable. And another game, Res, was like 100% capability. It was awesome. And so, I mean, with that being said, if you're just someone who is not tech savvy, if you're someone who just wants to play video games, you know, playing games mean more to you than just collecting, I think the Ouya is a great alternative as opposed to just playing games on your laptop. Now, I was talking about the Raspberry Pi. I do want to do a quick shout out to my friend John, who runs the Retro Bro. This is a Raspberry Pi 3, which is an upscale from my Raspberry Pi Zero. It's actually a lot stronger, and it can do things that my Raspberry Pi Zero can't do. Like, it's got Bluetooth, it's got Wi-Fi. That's another reason why I use the Ouya a lot, because I can't do that stuff with the Raspberry Pi with my version, the Zero. But I'll have a link on the description below to his video where he's talking about the Retro Bro and where you can actually buy them from him, because it's a plug and play. It's a Raspberry Pi 3, you just get it, it's got the games on it, you're good to go. So I mean, that's actually probably the best way, other than just the Ouya. If you just want to plug and play retro goodness, that's the best thing to do. And I mean, the Ouya, while it is discontinued, I know you can still find them online. A friend of mine actually bought a Ouya for like 50 bucks with 2 controllers. It originally retailed at $99.99. That's what I bought it for. And you know, years later, I still love this thing, man. I can play MAME on it, I can play PSP. The controller, while the controller is not the best in the world, it does have a touch screen, so I can play Nintendo DS games on my big screen. I can also play, you know, of course, Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Dreamcast. You know, it's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend this to you guys who just want to play video games and have a great time. This is a great alternative than just your laptop, especially if you're worried about getting viruses or anything like that. But anyway, guys, leave some comments below. What do you guys think about the Ouya? Ouya or oh no? I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.
Can't get enough of Excess Gaming Podcast? Be sure to check out our audio podcast on podomag.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you have a YouTube channel or podcast you'd like to share, be sure to check us out on Facebook on our group page and join the community. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the support, and happy gaming.